Hey everyone, it's Sam here, and welcome back to another episode of Mob Guys and Gals. First of all, I'd like to apologise to my subscribers and viewers for not uploading anything sooner. I have had quite a lot of stuff going on. This might also be my last video for a little while because I'll be going back to work soon. But I hope you enjoy this one. I thought I would do a special today on the real Peaky Blinders, so stay tuned. So in this video we're going to be looking at the 1921 Epsom Racecourse ambush, which probably will sound familiar as what happened in real life events in the ambush are very similar to what's depicted in our favourite TV show, Peaky Blinders. So our story begins in the early 1920s. Following the carnage of the Great War from 1914 to 1918, a new decade of prosperity followed. Now, of course, most of what we see in the TV series Peaky Blinders is fictional, but some of the characters were real figures in Britain's criminal underworld in the 1920s. These men were Billy Kimber, who in the series is played by Charlie Creed Miles, Darby Sabini, played by Noah Taylor, and Alfie Solomons, who is played by Tom Hardy. William Billy Kimber was born in 1882 in Aston, Birmingham, and by the 1920s had become the leader of the Brummagem or Birmingham Boys. Kimber and the Birmingham Boys controlled the racetracks in the Midlands and north of England, working alongside smaller gangs in Leeds and Utto Exeter. However, Kimber wanted to expand his territory, including the Epsom Downs Racecourse in Surrey in the south of England. Kimber relocated from Birmingham to London, setting up an alliance with London gangster brothers Charles Wagg and Wal MacDonald, who led the Elephant and Castle mob. The alliance grew to include other gangs in London, including the Camden Town Gang, led by George Brummy Sage, the Finsbury Boys, led by Freddie Gilbert, and the Hoxton Gang. During Kimber and the Birmingham Boys' attempts to control the racecourses in the south of England, their targets included Jewish bookmakers from the East End of London. One of these bookmakers was Alfie Solomons. Alfie Solomon was born in London's East End in 1892 and served with the British Army during the Great War as a driver with the Royal Field Artillery, which is referred to by his character played by Tom Hardy in Peaky Blinders. When Solomon returned after his military service, he became a bookmaker. A key difference between the real-life Alfie Solomon and his fictional counterpart on TV is that in real life, Solomon was a bookmaker and not a powerful gang leader like the fictional Alfie Solomon played by Tom Hardy. Now, during the TV series, we see that Alfie Solomon is at first enemies with Anglo gang leader Darby Sabini, and then the two are allies during a temporary truce against Tommy Shelby and the Peaky Blinders. Now, there was some truth in this, as in real life, Alfie Solomon did have an alliance with the real-life Darby Sabini, although they were never enemies like in the TV series. The alliance between Solomon and Sabini came about as a result of the Jewish bookmakers seeking protection from Kimber's Birmingham Boys, for which they turned to the London Italian gangs. Charles Darby Sabini was born in 1888 to an Italian father and an English mother. By the early 1910s, what became known as the Sabini Gang had become a recognised entity in Clerkenwell, which was then regarded as London's Little Italy. Compared to Billy Kimber's Birmingham Boys, the Sabini Gang was a very closely organised gang under the clear leadership of Darby Sabini, along with an inner circle of lieutenants, consisting of Darby Sabini's siblings and close friends, almost identical, yet different, to the organisation of mafia gangs in the US. In the Peaky Blinders TV series, Sabini's character is portrayed by Noah Taylor, and whilst there is a similarity between the real-life and fictional Darby Sabini, being depicted as a ruthless gang leader as he was in real life, there is also a key difference. Noah Taylor's Darby Sabini is shown as an American-style gangster who runs a jazz club and eats in an expensive restaurant. But in real life, Sabini was not known to showboat. Rather, he dressed modestly and in later years would attempt to go legitimate. During the early 1920s, confrontations between the Birmingham Boys and Sabini gang increased as fights broke out at the racecourses at Alexandra Park, Bath, and Epsom, and on the streets of London in a territorial battle for control of the racecourses and bookkeeper pitches. The battles between the two gangs began in March 1921 when Billy Kimber was shot in King's Cross, London. Kimber survived and was taken to the Royal Free Hospital. It later transpired that Kimber was shot during a visit to Darby Sabini's house in an attempt to discuss peace between the two gangs. Kimber's other opponent and Sabini ally, Alfie Solomon, was also present. A fight broke out in which Solomon is said to have pulled a pistol and tried to shoot Kimber. Solomon later denied this, insisting the gun was Kimber's and he had shot himself by accident during a struggle with Solomon. Kimber's Birmingham Boys had previously tried to take out Sabini in an ambush at Greenford Trotting Park, but this had failed, which in turn had led to the failed shooting attempt on Kimber. Violent episodes involving the Birmingham Boys and the Sabini gang at the racecourses in southern England in early 1921 had resulted in the Sabinis as the strongest of the two, but the Birmingham Boys were not finished yet. In early June 1921, the biggest racecourse event of the year was scheduled to take place, the Epsom Derby. Epsom was regarded as a highly strategic point by Kimber's men as it was located in Surrey, close to London, so a takeover would almost certainly cripple the Sabini gang. On the 2nd of June 1921, a group of the Birmingham Boys travelled to an isolated location at Ewell Corner next to the Brick Kiln Public House by Charabanc, a type of motor coach from Birmingham, and lay in wait, numbering around 60 to 70 men. Not long after, their intended targets arrived whilst travelling in a Crossley tender vehicle. The 10 men travelling in the Crossley tender vehicle, however, were not Sabini gang members. Rather, they were a group of bookkeepers from Leeds allied to Sabini. When the bookkeeper's vehicle approached the public house, it came under attack from a barrage of bricks and was rammed by a taxi driven by the Birmingham Boys. The attacking Birmingham Boys were armed with an assortment of weapons, including hammers, bricks, iron bars, and a revolver, and the bookkeepers were badly assaulted. 7 of them were taken to hospital, whilst the police arrested 28 members of the Birmingham Boys gang. When they were taken to Guildford Court on the 19th of July 1921, they were charged with offences including causing grievous bodily harm, conspiring with persons unknown to commit unlawful and malicious wounding, and the illegal possession of firearms and ammunition. Each gang member on trial was sentenced to hard labour or sent to prison. In late 1921, both Kimber and Sabini eventually declared a truce and agreed that whilst Kimber would control the racecourses in the Midlands and the north of England, Sabini would control the racecourses in the south, including Epsom. Whilst the two main gangs had declared a truce, this, however, did not mean a complete end to the racecourse wars, as Kimber's former allies, feeling betrayed and left out, continued to fight Sabini's gang for control over the following years of the 1920s. In the late 1920s, Darby Sabini and Billy Kimber began to move into more legitimate lines of work. In 1926, Sabini moved from London to Brighton, attempting to become a legal bookmaker, but his criminal past seemed to dog him, as he was arrested twice for assault and once for drunkenness. In 1940, Sabini was interred as an enemy alien due to his Italian heritage, although he would be released in 1941, but would later again be charged for handling stolen goods in June 1943. Sabini would eventually pass away due to an illness in 1950, working as a bookmaker until the end. Billy Kimber, like Sabini, also became a legal bookmaker who lived in relative luxury until 1927 when, after shooting up a public house, he fled to Los Angeles and then Chicago, where he was reportedly hidden by Murray Humphreys, an associate of Al Capone. In 1929, Kimber returned to Britain and became employed in the dog racing industry, which also earned him a substantial income. Kimber would eventually pass away in 1945 due to an illness. Alfie Solomon, on the other hand, became the complete opposite. Whilst Solomon had been a legitimate bookmaker in the early 1920s, the violence he encountered meant that he himself became a gangster in the 1930s, although not much more is known about him after that. So there you have it, guys, a history of the real-life gangsters behind Peaky Blinders during the early 1920s. Now, before I go, I'll show you one of the books I've been reading recently. This isn't a promotion, by the way. I just thought you guys might like to know. This is the book that I've been reading, which helped give me the inspiration for this video. Peaky Blinders: The Legacy by Cole Chin. It's the second one that he's published on the Peaky Blinders, and I'd highly recommend the two of them. That's it then, guys, for today. Hopefully I'll see you again soon. Take care and be safe. Bye now.